5 to 50-year kids, or we say adolescents. It's a risk group age. What is going to happen at the beginning? It will have rash or rupture of skin. This is you can see it looks like that, and even very itchy sometimes. And you say open your mouth, take your tongue, you will see it's like a strawberry. So strawberry tongue. Those are the first symptoms, you can see it. But I want to tell you, this pathogen is actually very invasive. How invasive it is? At the beginning, it starts from the skin surface. The terminology called impetigo. What it looks like. The skin surface, you see a red dots there, and the swelling, and a rash. That's called impetigo, or the skin surface. Then it will be developed onto a second step is cellulitis. What means cellulitis? Let's say this is the skin surface. Underneath the skin surface, you will see lots of these type of shape comes. It's like a bee house. That's called cellulitis. Then it will move on to next stage. It's going to have strep throat. So you have a strep throat is already lots of you have a third stage. Because this bacteria has E-nates, has all-nates, and could generate a kind of protease, therefore can hydrolyze DNA, RNA, protein. So it is very invasive. Not only for that, if this bacteria recover, what is going to happen? Look at your slides. If you recover, they will generate sequela, which means the disease follow your recovery. The disease sequela will cause rheumatic fever. Rheumatic fever. What is a rheumatic fever? Fever with joint pain. That's a rheumatic fever. Like joint here, you have a fever, you still with the pain. Okay? Second, glomerulonephritis. Nephritis. What's a glomerulonephritis? It's your kidney filtration system is damaged. So in your urine sample, you could be tested glucose, protein, and other nutrients. Remember, urine sample should be doesn't have any of the bacteria, any of the nutrition ingredients. If you have those there, which means could be possibly there is a kidney disease. So that's a sequela for rheumatic fever and glomerulonephritis. So that's why what I'm telling you, Streptococcus pyogenes is not that simple. It's a very invasive. If the doctor tested you first, you have that Streptococcus pyogenes, you have to use antibiotics immediately. Otherwise, he won't give to you. He will say it's just a normal virus, or just a normal cold virus, just go home, sleep, take a break 7 days, you will be natural recovery. Okay, now today, of course, they're going to do a COVID-19 virus for you testing first. That's what happened. And you can see it's through from impetigo, cellulitis, and it goes strep throat, goes sequela. It's a very invasive development stages for Streptococcus pyogenes, or for Streptococcus pyogenes. Next one, Streptococcus agalactiae. Streptococcus agalactiae. This is the one originally coming from cow. It's coming from the cow, actually, not from the human beings. If you hear about beta hemolytic Hughes newborn, then This is possibly is caused by Streptococcus agalactiae. Or we say GBS. Group B Streptococcus. So, in the United States, this bacteria shouldn't be a problem. Why? Shouldn't be a problem for the newborn baby because pregnant woman at 35 to 37 weeks of the pregnancy, they have to do a screening test for GBS. And they have to do something. If they don't do it, what happens? The newborn will have meningitis, could have septicemia, and could have pneumonia. So, in the United States, this shouldn't be a problem. Now the question back to here. We talk about Streptococcus pyogenes and Streptococcus agalactiae. Both are beta hemolytic. Both are Streptococcus. So how do we differentiate it? Same thing as you Streptococcus ammonium and the veridime Streptococcus. We using another disc, we call it an A disc. What is the A disc? Split them into two. We put a disc there. This disc containing another antibiotics, which is bacitracin. So you put a bacitracin in the strip, and you will see two different growth situations. What happened? Streptococcus pyogenes didn't grow, so it is transparent. Streptococcus pyogenes. That means it's susceptible. However, Streptococcus agalactiae, it grows very well. A big smear, a big chunk there. So that is Streptococcus agalactiae. It's resistant. It's the easiest way to do. Now we have a slide, so you can take a look. That's what it looks like. On the top, you see A disc is there. There's a transparent zone surrounded. And the components of the A disc is bacitracin, and that is Streptococcus pyogenes. And if you see some of the bacteria, if they're resistant, which means they still grow there, that is Streptococcus agalactiae. Okay. So, start from here. We finished talking about Streptococcus. Now, there's the one thing we haven't mentioned is this guy, Enterococcus faecium. We haven't mentioned, so we want to briefly talk about Enterococcus faecium. So, what is Enterococcus faecium? We just write Enterococcus facilis or facium. Okay, first of all, this bacteria, we call it group B strep. Based on Rebecca Lansfield's group, we just mentioned. A long time ago, Enterococcus facilis is belonging to Streptococcus. Later on, they separated. This pathogen will cause urinary tract infection and infant diarrhea. So, in other words, it looks very similar to Klebsiella ammonium. However, Klebsiella ammonium is gram-negative bacteria, and this is gram-positive. How we differentiate this bacteria from the others? This bacteria is very, very interesting. It will be survived 66% bile salt. This is usually a selective ingredient for the biosalt, especially the salt, because of the osmotic unbalance. Lots of the bacteria will be dying, they can survive. And it is also could be transferred esculin become esculitine and turns black choline. Therefore, we could be using a very special agar is bioesculin agar. On the bioesculin agar, it turns black choline because the esculin becomes esculitine, and this is we also call it a salt reduction. And the last thing I also want to mention, it's very interesting, and my research group did a lot of work there. Enterococcus faecilis. It is actually right now a good surrogate bacteria for Salmonella. So what is the interesting story for that is Salmonella is a pathogen, a risk for poultry meats, especially during the cooking process. But if you want to do a real cooking process in plants, you can use pathogen. You can use Salmonella. It's biosafety level 2. They want to use. So you need to pick up some of the surrogate bacteria. And there are lots of reports, and we did a lot of validation study. Enterococcus faecilis is actually a very good surrogate bacteria for Salmonella, which means it will be showing a little bit of resistance to the heat. How do we know it's a good surrogate? It neither behave equally well or even resistant to the antimicrobial treatments compared to the target pathogen. Here, the target pathogen is Salmonella. So that's very interesting for the Enterococcus faecilis. So I just want to briefly mention that. Okay. Next, Staphylococcus. Okay, Staphylococcus. There is some of the interesting topic right here. We want to use this whole section to talk about Staphylococcus. Then we have a conclusion table for everything. Okay. Staphylococcus. Okay, Staphylococcus we already mentioned. Gram-positive, coxal, grapeshot. We will mention 3 major species. Of course, there's a lot. First one, Staphylococcus epidermis. Okay, when you see epidermis, what this means? The miss. Okay. What means epidermis? The actual skin surface. So we say Staphylococcus epidermis is a normal bacteria on skin surface. However, be careful. In the hospital, sometimes it will cause a nosocomial infection if you didn't do a good job of the clean and the medical hygiene. But the case is very low. So we think Staphylococcus epidermis is normal bacteria on the surface. Second one, Staphylococcus saprophyticus. This bacteria will cause UTI for 16 to 25-year-old sexual activity women. So what happened? So there's a college kids, for example, and one day have a body map pain and go to see a doctor. And the doctor gets some of the extraction or gets some of the some sample from the vagina area, and he will tell the mom. He said, "Your daughter has a sexually transmitted disease. It's by Staphylococcus aureus." Then the mom will think about a couple of days and nights. Her daughter didn't at home. It could be. So this passaging usually is a group. The risk group is a young lady, a sexual activity lady. And we call it a nickname. It's called a honeymoon bacteria. Now, why the doctor could know the honeymoon bacteria very quick? The reason is, indifferent from Staphylococcus epidermis and Staphylococcus aureus, this saprophyticus is resistant to low-dose novel vaccine. Therefore, if you do a novel vaccine disc strip test, like you did A disc, P disc, you see it will grow there, others will be cured. So you know it's possible. Very highly likely Staphylococcus saprophyticus. So we call the nickname the honeymoon bacteria. It's different from others. It's not called upper respiratory tract. It is called lower body. The issue is in the lower body. Okay? So that's the second one. The third one, we already talked about it, Staphylococcus aureus. For this pathogen, we want to mention 3 important issues for that. Number 1, food intoxication. This relates to chicken salads. What happened? We mentioned about that before. Staphylococcus aureus is a halophile. It's resistant to salt. So skin, you have a little bit of salt. It does not matter you're sweating or not. You have some salt there, so they survive. If the people preparing the chicken salads, here is the salad, here is the chickens, ground the chickens, then mess it up. Okay, in the fall semester or in the cold weather, they start to sneeze. You do like this, like that. Then they start to do what happened. Staphylococcus aureus will contaminate with the salads. And this will generate exotoxin. And this toxin is very quick. 6-hour onset, you have vomiting, diarrhea, and nausea. Very quick. And be careful, this food intoxication even resistant to heat. So the chicken salads, if it's contaminated, you go back to cook it, or you go back to heat it a little bit. Doesn't help too much. And ironically, Staphylococcus aureus, you don't have to report this to CDC. If you have an E. coli 015-7H7, salmonella, you have to report it to CDC. This one you don't have to. But they think it's a low risk, but I tell you it's a high risk for chicken salads. Chicken salads is very cheap, $5 for a big bag. So, but I tell you, there's a potential risk. If the preparing person didn't pay much attention, do the sneezing, coughing, and still do it, Staphylococcus aureus is very easy to contaminate it. So this is the food intoxication, the first thing. The second, you heard about this guy, MRSA. I believe some of you heard about this. What is this one called? Methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. First of all, what is methicillin? We will mention later. You know the penicillin is usually the first effective broad-spectrum antibiotics. So in all the time, people have a penicillin G, penicillin V, but you only can do muscle injection because the pepsin and in the stomach area could be hydrolyzed. So you only can do a muscle injection. So later on, people developed the one called amoxicillin. And amoxicillin you can already take. However, there's a lot of antibiotic resistance happens. So people develop advanced penicillin called methicillin. However, the methicillin is used too much in the hospital, plus carelessness. Therefore, it becomes a famous antibiotic resistant strain called MRSA. And this is a typical nosocomial infection. What this means, hospital, basically post-surgery infection. That's called a hospital-acquired infection. We have another one we're going to mention, okay? Next week, this one must. The only reason is carelessness, is people using too much. Now the last one. PSST1. This one, people heard about it. This is talk about this one. This is in 1970s. A company generates a very highly absorbent tampon for a woman using in period time. So what happened is this guy could be attracted all of the water in the vagina area. The vagina area has numerous different types of the bacteria. For example, lactic acid bacteria, which is a protected bacteria. Once you have this tampon there, all the water is gone. So all these beneficial bacteria is died. Then what happens? Staphylococcus aureus will be dominant. Okay, once it's dominant, what happens? At the beginning, you maybe have a fever. Then you have some of the rash, rupture. You didn't pay much attention there. Then you have what? Hypertension. What means the hypertension? This means, let's say this is a kidney. The blood is going there, is that right? You have a pressure. When you have a pressure, so the blood is going to the kidney. So it's going to be functional, operated normally. If you have a hypertension, this blood is gone, what happens? This kidney will start to decay, or degraded, and slowly dying. And this horrible tampon that products in 1970s completely reported Riley, the tampon called Riley, the products killed about like 13 women by the period of time. And later on, this product has been out of the market. And here, the Staphylococcus aureus cause toxic shock syndrome toxin 1. This is what is released to the vagina tract. And then very invasive. Why it is invasive? Look at these slides. How many enzymes there? You could break down almost everything in the tissue, in the muscle. Especially we want to mention one thing is coagulants. Coagulants will cause clotting of blood plasma. And how we do the research, you using a rabbit serum, blood serum. You add the Staphylococcus aureus there. 4 hours later, you flip it over. It's like a completely glued. The liquid will not fall down because of the coagulants. Because of the coagulants will cause the hypertension. Because all the liquid, all the blood there looks like glue. So not enough go to your kidney area. They start to decay, slowly dying. So that's what happens for Staphylococcus aureus. Okay? So here is something. Next one, we want to do some of the conclusion for Staphylococcus. Based on the microbiology standpoint, we could do some of the conclusion. So we have Staphylococcus aureus, Staphylococcus saprophyticus, and the Staphylococcus epidermis. We could do some of the isolation. We could do some of the identification in the clinical area using some of the relatively quick methods. So what are they? First of all, we use a blood agar. On the blood agar, Staphylococcus aureus is beta hemolytic, which means transparent zone. And you will see next week in the lab. Staphylococcus saprophyticus and epidermis is non-hemolytic. It is non-hemolytic. Nothing will happen. Same as Enterococcus facilis. That's on the blood agar. The second one, you can use mannitol salt agar. Remember the question in the exam one, did you do good? Mannitol salt agar, we will do in the lab next week. But we already heard about the name. What happened? Mannitol is ingredients for differentiated bacteria. Salt is a selective ingredient. So it depends on certain circumstances. It could be a selective media, it could be a differentiated media. What happened for Staphylococcus aureus, it is yellow colony because it is mannitol fermentation positive, and others are colors. That's mannitol fermentation negative. Okay, then what we can do? Normal bouncing. Remember the joke? You have a honeymoon bacteria. How do we know the honeymoon bacteria? Why we don't say it's Staphylococcus aureus? Why we don't say it's Staphylococcus epidermis? Because it's resistant to the novel bouncing. So the middle one is resistant to the novel bouncing, and the Staphylococcus aureus are susceptible